This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day. Carefully crafted for you by humans. So meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on the Fully Managed podcast. Thank you, Dan, so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Beautiful. So today we're going to start with a game, as we do per usual. It's just to get creative juices flowing, get a little brain break in the day. If anything, this one actually does make you think, so maybe it's not a brain break, but it's a fun little task. So are you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, so this game is called Market Me This. So I'm going to give you an absurd product, debatably absurd, that you are going to market me. You can choose any avenue to go down. You don't have to, obviously marketing takes many, many different paths. But just, you can do an overview. You can go into your specific favorite part when you go to market something. But I've developed a biotech a product for you to market that might never exist and probably will never exist. But are you ready?
Let's do it. Okay.
All right. This is anti-aging mosquito bites. So these are engineered mosquitoes that inject collagen instead of itchy stuff.
Okay.
Market me this. Tell me your plan.
Wow, that is crazy. Anti-aging. So they got to bite you in the face to get the anti-aging effects. That's the
I guess that's where most people put collagen, but it can be anywhere, I suppose. If there's wrinkles,
okay,
that can help.
Wow. Okay, that's a crazy one. I like it. Well, first we got to figure out where the mosquito bite market is. I'm in South Florida, so here we are. This summer was brutal. So, and every other person here is on Botox. So I'd probably maybe get into some kind of fun ad campaign on YouTube. Maybe something like the old remember the Dollar Shave Club? They ran a really, really fun type of ad, or the mattress brand Purple kind of comes to mind, or Tushy, something playful like that, and then hire some kind of really creative videographer to launch some kind of ad campaign to that appropriate demographic there. So yeah, I mean, with a brand that's kind of funky like that, I think you have to be funky with your advertising. So I think something kind of like a YouTube type fun, playful ad related to aging and how crazy mosquito bites are could be a kind of something to go no pun intended viral. So yeah, that's how I rock that one out.
Yeah, no, I think that's great, and I think it's also with an absurd product, you need an absurd approach.
Yeah.
And so, like, a funny ad would definitely, I think, would work for this. Thank you for humoring me with my absurd
that was fun.
product.
Yeah, I should maybe get into that. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. I mean, it's not patented, so
Okay.
So go right ahead.
Okay, cool. Little Botox mosquitoes.
So now that you've entertained my funny little game, tell me and the audience a little bit about yourself. Like what led you to this industry specifically? What got you into being the CEO of Digital Elevator, and what you're doing today, and everything that you think would be relevant to share.
Cool, sure. Yeah, so I was in flight school, actually, airplane school, and a friend of mine and I had both finished our initial leg of training called private pilot. And then from there, you kind of decide what other certifications you want to get en route to being a professional kind of commercial pilot. And both of us were like, I don't think I really want to do this. And he was kind of a serial entrepreneur, and he's like, do you want to start an IT company or an SEO company? He's like, those are two kind of up and coming things. And I said, this SEO thing sounds cool. This is like 15 years ago. So Google was pretty new in terms of like doing what we do. And so we did. So we started an SEO company together. It focused on lawyers primarily. It was called Gavel Tech, and we had some pretty good success there. Eventually, we kind of went separate directions, and I stayed in the agency space, and it eventually led me to founding Digital Elevator, the company that I still run now. And for a while, we were like agnostic with the type of clients that we served, but always seemed to work with healthcare clients. And then, along that path, we were getting a lot of demand from life science biotech. And so we kind of like went all in with the biotech life science industry. I worked with a lot of kind of SaaS companies and tech companies, and the biotech space was one that was kind of opportunistic for the services that we were offering and the company types that we wanted to work with, and fun mosquito, bug bite, collagen type crazy companies that have good funding. And so now that's kind of what we're known for is biotech marketing, primarily SEO, nowadays AEO, kind of answer engine optimization type stuff, and then content marketing and like UX, UI, conversion optimization. And a lot, even a further niche is we work with a lot of product in like med tech manufacturing companies.
Okay.
That's kind of a niche of a niche one.
Everyone says different.
So it's been about 15 years of Digital Elevator, and that's where we're at now.
Well, congratulations for getting past the 10-year mark. Getting past the 5-year mark for agencies is hard enough.
Thank you.
And now the 15-year mark, that's incredible. It makes total sense that you kind of like fell into an industry based on demand. I hear that a lot actually from different founders, and like sometimes you just end up specializing in something because it's something that you find that you're good at. Are there specific complexities involved in this industry that you like didn't anticipate when getting into it? Because I know that the area of specifically like healthcare has a lot of you have to be like HIPAA compliant in a lot of different ways in which you navigate it. What's like the hardest thing that is kind of to navigate in your industry?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it spot on. And the compliance stuff is definitely the hardest thing to navigate. And it's not that we have to navigate it per se. It's really the client's legal team. Mm-hmm. But what we have to navigate is momentum. Our job as marketing agency or marketers is to continually move the needle. Mm-hmm. But when it takes 3 months to publish something, it doesn't move very fast. So we're often tasked with figuring that out, trying to get quick wins when things are going to be held up with compliance.
Okay.
And balancing the things that we know will work but are more long-term while managing the C-suite who kind of demands instant results. It's become worse. And in terms of like agency life, I think most agency owners can attest to this in the past couple of years in terms of like how much pressure there is on us in general to perform quickly without, a dedicated roadmap. A lot of times we're finding it's like, hey, give me a little 3-month pilot program, and then if it works, we'll sign on for more. And it's like, well, it takes you 3 months to approve something. It's not really going to fit. So it's a lot of that. And then being creative and being like, okay, well, here's what we can do quickly that will move the needle quick. And so we've had to learn a lot about, trying to move things quick within the parameters that we're allowed to. And, when you hear SEO historically, it's like, oh, it's slow, right? Like everybody knows SEO is slower than like pay-per-click or something. But that's part of the process that we're really good at, is like actually getting quick wins, quote unquote, quick wins in SEO, and getting the, and being transparent about what those KPIs are expected to be with clients. So yeah, that's definitely been challenging in that biotech space for sure.
Yeah. What do you classify as a quick win? Like what is that avenue? How is that different than like a long-term goal that maybe takes a little work with like the bureaucratic kind of things that different companies may have?
Sure. I think it's communicating the early indicators often. So that can be impression share increases or rankings increases. It's like you're on page 10 and now you're on page 3. It's been a month. That's a win. I mean, often biotech is cool because there's so much diversity in the product offerings that a lot of times if we do like proper on-page foundational SEO stuff, we can land on page one in a month or two for fairly established brands, not for startups. So that would be a quick win. I mean, I think it's great to say it translates to sales, but it's more often translating to pipeline because most of our clients are B2B and they take 6-12 months to close deals anyway.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of quick wins we're looking at, and I think with pay-per-click or something, it's also trying to get leads in the door within like 2 months that are, again, pipeline, like, okay, this lead, if this closes, is potentially worth whatever, 20 times what we paid for the marketing agency and the ad spend or something like that. So that's really what we're doing. And we have to showcase like, oh, hey, it's on route to do what we said we thought it was going to do. You might not rank number one. The phone not be ringing off the hook, but you're in front of your ideal customer persona, or your ranking you're on page one, and you're nowhere to be found before this. So now it's proof that what we're doing is working, and that more to come type thing.
Yeah, exactly. I think that at a regular expectation for agencies, there's like this, there's this discrepancy and like this unrealistic expectation for what you're able to deliver in a certain amount of time for any industry. But I can understand when there's more levels to get approval for certain campaigns, that it's probably even more frustrating in the expectations that they might have for you to deliver within a certain amount of time, right, especially for that kind of industry.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we like to move fast, right? Marketers like to move fast because that means results, and that means more security of client retention, right? But we're often kind of handicapped there, or like handcuffed there, right? So it's definitely a balancing act. And most of the time, we think we probably put more pressure on ourselves than our clients do. They know they move slow, but it's just what we do, right? So it's part of the game.
Yeah, exactly. I think the best marketers are way more stressed out for themselves than their clients are putting the pressure on. Sometimes you have a really a very pushy client, but I think most of the time it's honestly you being disappointed in yourself or like what you can accomplish, even if it's unrealistic.
It is, yeah, exactly. You nailed it.
You spoke about the diversity of like this industry. Is there anything that you have been surprised about, or something that you thought was really, really interesting in your industry that you never knew existed before speaking with a client about it? If you can reveal anything like that, like anti-aging mosquito bites, perhaps.
I think the startups are probably the most interesting companies, because right now they're bringing a lot of AI and tech into the space, whereas before it's strictly, products or service based, and now they're creating, service platforms with AI for research or discovery, and they're just accelerating things. I think the actual government compliance of those things is still trying to catch up to it, but what they're doing there is pretty fascinating. And I think with medicine and healthcare, where it's going is kind of almost personalized. Yeah. Where it's like, okay, hey, this person has this ailment, and then the AI platform is going to create or understand some kind of healthcare protocol that's individual to that person, and it's not going to cost $300,000 a month for that person or their healthcare company. So that's pretty cool. I mean, we're seeing a lot of that. We don't tend to work with a lot of startups in that regard. We did for a while, but it's mostly because our services aren't really geared towards the startups. They're geared more towards like B2B established. Yeah. So, but that's cool. I'll pause there. I have NDAs with almost everybody, so I don't want to say anything. But I think most biotechs you can see that are new are doing some pretty cool stuff on the tech front, and that's promising for the future. Of like dementia or like Parkinson's type stuff, even vision, all kinds of crazy stuff. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've actually spoken to a previous guest that was in the biotech industry as well, and like the AI incorporation. I think like everyone has a level of like wariness about AI incorporation in a lot of different industries, and like for just reasons, I do agree. But I think that in the medical field, there's so many positive ways that it can impact it that I didn't know until speaking to someone previously. Like what you mentioned about like having it incorporated in like diagnoses or in developing like a plan. I think that it's if anything that can only be beneficial as long as it's obviously not wrong.
Right.
But there's so much that a doctor can do and so many things that they can consider to diagnose you with something, whereas like something that can incorporate all the factors that they have at their disposal to diagnose you is sounds so much like so wonderful, because a lot of times you have to go to so many different doctors for different purposes, and you can't, like, they're not talking to each other, like they're not having a dialogue with each other, so you're getting different opinions from different people, and they're only human, of course. But
Right.
that sounds like such an amazing way of making like something more accurate
Sure.
when in the healthcare field.
And that's something, we're talking to several companies that are using that information sharing that AI helps enable. So document searching or, publication searches, that kind of thing, which is pretty cool because there's so many things that are published, and, it might be hard for scientists to find what previous research says, and they can pull it very quickly, and then and it allows them to make decisions on that stuff. And so they're presenting those kind of things to companies to use those platforms to speed things up, which I think, in terms of healthcare, at the end of the day, if that's better for everybody, faster, more accessible healthcare is what's better for everybody. And I think, in biotech, it's all about money and equity and raising funds. But at the end of the day, that's where it goes, is to some patient at the end of the road, some cancer patient or something. And like, that's pretty cool. That's rewarding. I think that's rewarding for our clients too.
Yeah, exactly. And with insurance companies and then pushing these really fast 15-minute consultations for everything anyway, it's probably helpful to have a tool to be able to speed things along with all of that. So yeah, well, speaking of AI, how has that kind of affected your industry rather than maybe the it could, the biotech industry might also impact what you're doing as well with the incorporation of it, but is there any ways that you've improved your processes or have been difficult to navigate with the that becoming more popular?
Yeah, I think that's always a fun topic. It's kind of crazy to see where it's going and how far it's come already, and the types of roles that are changing. And I think the most obvious one is writing. And writers, I think writers have had to become more strategists than just simply writers, because it's free to get stuff written now. But the prompting there, I think the processes is really where the magic is. And so we do use a ton of AI on our processes for like writing and specifically like SEO content writing, where we're researching who's ranking, what topics they cover, what subtopics they cover, how many keywords they're ranking for, increasingly design in those types of articles. The user interface of content that we create is become a large deliverable for us, which is not AI, but leading up to that is AI. So, it's where it might have been, 75% writing and 25% research. Nowadays, it's like you do 75% of your research and then you feed the 25% in the AI. I think companies that are not doing that are blowing it. We still get clients sometimes that are surprised that we say we can do most of the content writing with AI, but if you want, we can bring in a human PhD, and they make a lot of mistakes. Even PhD writers that we hire make a lot of mistakes, and people often hate that content. And you can, now you can feed AI like your brand kit, which is cool. if you know how to do that, or you have access to a platform that does that. So we're doing that. Basically, it analyzes your previous content, your voice, how you explain things, similar topics, and then considers that in the scope of what it then outputs. Internal linking can be augmented by AI now if it knows your whole site. I mean, some of these softwares will actually understand your whole site and make that recommendation for internal linking, which is good for user experience, really good for SEO. Mm-hmm. And then like research, competitive analysis. So we have for example, we have a AI, basically it's like a competitive analysis AI service I'm
familiar. Mm-hmm.
Is based on like messaging. So we'll go and we'll put a bunch of input into it, pull a bunch of data with our tools, and then we have a prompt that we use. And basically, like if somebody wants to know how they should position their company with their messaging, or how their competitors are positioning their messaging, or how much content they're writing about X topic, how they benchmark against competitors, like that's what we're doing now. That's really powerful. That you might have hired Gartner to do that for you for $40,000, and we can do it for like $5,000, or something like that. So we're using it a lot, and we're constantly like talking internally about workflows to build that might be custom if they don't already exist, or like integrating with APIs in terms of having like proprietary tech stacks. I think that's where agencies are going. Most of the big prominent agencies have like internal proprietary tools. As a little segue from the topic, but I think that's really cool. You see that a lot with the more prominent agencies. They have like proprietary tools so that their services are more sticky.
Yes.
And their valuations are higher. So it's probably twofold if they want to sell. But yeah, so that's a little bit what we're doing. I don't think nothing too crazy from what probably most agencies are doing, but maybe our processes are different.
No, I'm actually very interested in, and this is maybe going a little offshoot of what we were talking about, but how does competition work for the biotech industry? Because aren't they like after the same goal? Like, is it because they have a similar product and they're both trying to reach the same kind of people in order to sell that product and or service? Is that kind of how, I'm just so curious about like how competition works with that, because like in the end they're trying to help people, right? So is it weird to have competition in a space like that?
I mean, everybody wants market share. I think it's the same as any industry, right? Like we have clients that have generally, 4 or 5 very specific competitors, and some of them are small, and then there's like the juggernauts in the industry that are like in every vertical. They're huge companies that everybody would probably know the name of, and they're like always a competitor. So I think for these companies, it's carving out a niche of where they can provide the most benefit. Like if they're a research organization, maybe it's a cancer research organization, right? Or like a dementia, rather than just being general research organization. And that's when you can get hired by like big pharma if they're partnering. So I think those specializations, and increasingly the amount of data that they have and can share to help their clients make decisions is like contract research organizations. This super competitive space, probably the most competitive that I've seen, contract research organizations, because they facilitate a lot of the things that like pharma companies don't have in-house. But I mean, whoever does some of the best marketing, not a self-promotion there, but it's whoever does the best marketing is often getting some of that noise, and I think that's going to be a part of it too. But I think it's like any other industry. You're going to have competitors selling the same thing. MailChimp, Constant Contact, right? Like whatever, right? HubSpot, Salesforce. Everybody's got their little niche.
Yeah, no, I was just out of curiosity, because it is there's a lot of spaces, obviously they're working towards the same goal, and that's why they have a competitor, but it's almost like odd to hear that there's competition in a space in which they're like working to help people, because it's like, if we all just did this together, we could work towards
Right.
the same goal. But I understand why, because some people do things differently, or like, don't like the way in which a process is for maybe the same kind of product in a different, place. And that makes a lot of sense. But, well, like, so on that point, how does like brand loyalty work in biotech? Like, buyers, I assume, are often forced by regulation and evidence and cost, but like, how do you build an emotional connection in that space?
I don't think they do. I don't think they do a very good job of it. They're not that forward thinking, most of them. I mean, it's just like, if you ask like what's your brand voice? It's like, it's professional and data driven. Like, it's not, there's nothing playful or like edgy about these companies because do you want your, science provider to be playful and edgy? Maybe somebody should, but it's not something that really comes out. So yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. Kind of blanked out on that one. Sorry.
No, it's okay. But that's really interesting because I never really thought about it like that. Of course, they would be, I understand there's certain industries that professional is the only way to go, like in a very cookie cutter kind of way. But I'm so curious about like why someone, or like why a company would pick one over the other. In like, is it just, do you believe like just based off of marketing and exposure and like promotion, or do you think that there's like certain aspects of a brand that feed into someone choosing one over the other, so to speak?
Sure. Yeah, it's a good question. I think that's something we try to address with our clients and letting them know what brand affinity is like and how to build it, and what it means to be up against the huge companies, right? So
yeah,
I mean, we all know, like, if some company comes along and they're like, hey, we have all the features that HubSpot has and we are 50% of the price, but nobody's ever heard of you, you're probably going to go to HubSpot, right?
Yeah.
And that's just how it is. So in the biotech space, it's no different than in those other industries. So if you're a startup and you're cheaper or faster, or you say that you're better, it doesn't really matter, just like it doesn't matter in most other industries. Nobody really cares about that. They're like, well, did I trust them? Have I heard of them? I don't know who they are. I know this HubSpot brand. I know Salesforce, right? I know MailChimp. I compare these things to SaaS all the time because they're the most competitive in some of the most competitive industries for sure.
Yeah, of course.
So, I mean, and it's surprising because sometimes we learn about our clients, like we're like, oh, hey, like what's your unique selling proposition? And they don't have one. And we're like, you got to have one. Like, we're not a messaging company, really. Like, we're not like, hey, we're going to build your messaging out. We have exercise that I just mentioned that we do to help them figure out what the qualitative data points are there. But we're not like, hey, we're going to make you this X company, right? We're not like a consulting firm like that. So we don't fully dive into it in terms of like, oh, you should position your company like this. They, usually they come to us with that established. But it's interesting when we have these clients and they're like, you probe them a little bit. They're like, actually, our products aren't as good as the competitors. That's why we don't want to do this comparison guide that you're recommending. And we're like, that makes our job a lot harder.
Oh no!
I didn't know. Like, we're like, we should get reviews. You should get more reviews on your e-com biotech website. And they're like, oh, we don't want to because they're probably not going to be that good. And we're like, okay, that doesn't help us as a marketing team.
That's like a big problem.
So yeah, these are big problems, right? And it's like, okay, well, we have to build trust somehow, and we need an angle that's just going to reinforce when we drive traffic to your site. Like, people are going to be like, oh, this is the company that's the best at this, or that they have the biggest data set that's important to me for decision making, or whatever. This helps me cut my process by 50% of the time. So I get it. That's why I choose them. And any industry, I think any company needs to know that now more than ever. Consumers they're picky. When we're optimizing for like ChatGPT type stuff, it's like people are going to be very specific about what they want and the features they want, which is good if you're take advantage of it, right? To talk about, I call it AEO. Everybody the industry hasn't settled on a name yet. GEO, LLM, AI optimization, whatever the hell you want to call it. I'm going with AEO. It's, people are going to flesh out much more quickly now the brands that work for them than they could before, because they can be very specific about their queries in ChatGPT, right? Google, you're like, what are the best, cancer contract research, right?
Yeah, or
and then
like
you're
5 words. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you're going to read, and then you're going to try to figure it out. But in ChatGPT, they're going to be like, oh, what about the ones that do X, Y, Z?
Yeah.
Which is personal to what you want. And then the companies that actually are different, right, are the ones that are going to surface there. And I think, but you have to publish that kind of information on your website to get there, because people want the best solution for them. And then it no longer just becomes about who's got the moat of the biggest, who's the Salesforce or the MailChimp of the world. It's like, oh, this is actually exactly what I needed. These feature sets or this customer service component or whatever your biggest concern is, price or speed or whatever. And they're going to get there like that. So I think that's where things are going, which is good, right? Like it's no longer just, oh, hey, the best SEO agency that you hired made you a bunch of money. It's like, okay, well, now you have to build a brand. It's not just good SEO. It's like the SEO company that also helps you build a brand with content and those kind of considerations for content creation, because it's got to pull from somewhere, which is generally your content. So that's how I kind of look at that whole ecosystem.
Yeah, I think it's a very positive thing that's happening with the space, because I think that previously it was very, not to give agencies a bad name at all, but I think that previously, early on in the agency world, it was very easy to be burned by an agency because you didn't really ever know much about it, kind of thing.
Right.
And I hear those stories a lot, even with people that come on the show and tell me, like, a lot of people come to them saying that they had a bad experience with another agency, and sometimes those are for reasons that are just, and sometimes they're not, because they just had unrealistic expectations, which we talked about earlier on. But I love the idea of these large conglomerates maybe not getting as much traction because they're not as good as providing good information about like what they actually do. And then agencies that are maybe just as good as this insert large conglomerate here, that they're able to get more traffic just based off of the brand that they've built for themselves, and like the accessibility to the knowledge about their brand and all these different points. And I love that AI has opened the door for like the checking boxes of what you want personally, rather than Google being more of like a generic search option in which you're probably just going to find whatever is paying the most money to sponsor to be up at the top, or whatever it may be.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, and we have to leverage that, right? It is another algorithm, but it is, it's generally going to lead. It gives options, right? It's not like Google where it's, can be biased. I mean, I think ChatGPT will introduce ads here soon. They have to monetize this thing, but I think it usually is pretty good at being objective. But I mean, but when you look at those roundup posts is kind of what I'm talking about, or the suggestions of companies, if that's the kind of search you're doing, is they're generally not small companies. They're like the well-known ones, right? And it's like, well, I've heard other agencies, like trusted agency owners, saying there's an opportunity for even startups to get featured. I haven't seen it myself. I still think we're in a testing phase. The best advice I've heard on kind of AEO is that do your own tests. I like to read up on what like some of the more prominent companies are doing with their testing, and they have, 2,000 sites in their database, and they can draw correlations. And I think that's all great, but it's not set in stone. I mean, a lot of the stuff that people have said don't do, I've tested and it's worked. And I'm like, well, okay. So, so do your own tests, I think, is one takeaway that I've learned a lot recently. And I think that starts with a question, like, and so for me, like one question I need to answer still is like, a lot of people say like don't create like top of funnel content anymore because AI is just going to do it for you. But then there's this component of you need to have topical authority to get indexed, right, in Google and in ChatGPT. And I have not seen any studies that suggest that you can just create bottom funnel content and get indexed without doing anything topically. I'm going a little tangent here, but it's been on my mind. I'll run it by you. You know what I mean? Like you can do like, what is graphic design? What is UX? And if that's what your industry is, right? And create a bunch of posts like that, and it's not going to get you a client, right? But the question is, does that content lend itself to the search engines and the LLMs saying, this is an authority on these topics, therefore they should be surfaced more?
Exactly.
The assumption is yes, but the logic is, why would you waste your time on it? But I don't know. I would yet to see a study about that. But so it's just you can assume and do one thing, or you can try to test it yourself. So, but yeah, it's early in the industry, and I think that's what's exciting about it.
Yeah,
is that if we position ourselves and we can get there, we can help clients early, even though it's not like fully taken hold.
Yeah, it's almost exciting that things are changing in the for SEO, just because it's like it kind of seemingly has worked the same way for so long that it's kind of like this interruption is almost, I guess, feels like a good thing, of that, it's definitely more focused on how good your content is and like that's quality, rather than just pushing it out and having like seeming to have the most authority solely because of the amount that you have, which is always, obviously quantitative is also important, but at the same time, making sure that everything that you're creating is quality, and that's why you're an expert in your field or whatever you're trying to put out there seems to be more important. And it almost makes sense that like the big conglomerates will still show up in anything, related to AI search, just because they have the most money to reorient their entire business to make sure that or like to do research towards what's the best way to make sure that they're showing up there. So like,
sure.
Of course, maybe first that might be why, or like maybe that's the inkling that I have for why they're showing up too. But at the same time, I think that it opens doors for smaller businesses, startups, other agencies to be able to show up there once they catch up.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally.
Well, okay, we're coming up to our going over time, but I want to ask you a forward-looking question before we go. Okay. Cool. This is kind of off topic, but if you were to start another business or a passion project, so to speak, what would you do? It could be completely unrelated to what you're doing now, just like something that you would enjoy.
Sure. I already have some in the works, kind of a serial entrepreneur. So I'm big in surfing. I'm a big surfer. It's like my main hobby. So my brother and I, a while ago, we built a surf forecasting website, and with surf cams and stuff like that. And then it didn't really take hold. But if I were to really do a passion project, I think it would be like a new surf forecasting website. I think there's really like one huge player in the space, and that's it. It's prime for disruption.
That's awesome.
And there's a lot of new tech with weather that I think is not being utilized.
And because you're in the tech field.
And it's largely because of AI, right? Like it's AI weather tech. I think Google has this huge thing, right? So I think that would be cool, because you show up every day, and you're trying to forecast the waves around the world, and there's other things to take into consideration there. So that's probably what I do. I mean, with that brand now, I'm making it an e-com store as a little side project. But yeah, I think that would be fun to get into that.
Well, that's really, really cool. And I just love to ask people things outside of their specific industry in which they spend the most time on, because I think that's important to look in all spaces and be able to enjoy life outside of, your very passionate work that you're doing now. So,
Sure.
But it makes sense that you'd need the weather app for the South Florida weather that you've been having.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But thank you so much for joining me today. This was a very engaging chat. I think that we got into a lot of technical aspects of things that I love to get into because getting to learn from the podcast is selfishly my favorite thing. So thank you so much. And I appreciate you joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Great questions. It's really fun.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for listening. I hope that you get to check out Dan and Digital Elevator in the description. And thank you so much for joining us. Have a lovely day, everyone.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest. And to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend and, of course, subscribe.